Hello and welcome to MBA Waves. My name is Eric Lucrezia, one of the founders of MBA Waves, along with my co-founder Bara Sapir, who is not with us today. Bara is the founder also of City Test Prep. She works with people preparing the GMAT, GRE, and other tests. And I'm the founder of Candidate Coach, which is an admissions consulting firm dealing with people applying for MBAs from all over the world, going to all over the world. And today we are joined by John Jaramillo from Coach It Out. Today's episode on MBA Waves is called Networking with Class. And so we're going to talk about that today. John, why don't you introduce yourself today?
Hi, everybody. I'm John Jaramillo. I'm a leadership performance coach based out of Connecticut, but with the pandemic and just the world going to virtual in general, I've been in contact with clients all over the place. My background is an undergrad in marketing, a master's in business administration, a master's in organizational psychology, certificate in mediation. It's this weird mishmash of different things, obviously not planned, but in hindsight, it all pays it forward to help as a leadership performance coach, just because it deals with communication, relationships, the business aspect. So it's a good mix of everything. I've had my own coaching company for the last 7 years, working with clients mostly that are coming into new positions. So organizations will bring me in to work with new managers that have been in the company. They're bringing them into new positions, and they're like, they just need to be refined a little, worked with a little. And also, I'm gearing more towards more work with students. I realize how much we're kind of letting them down, where it's like all curriculum, but not really self-assessment. So that's just a highlight reel of the work that I do.
Thanks, Jen. And speaking of network, let's just talk about for a second how we know each other. We are old friends back from Hofstra University when we were undergraduates in late 90s. So it's been 24 or so years we've known each other, which is pretty insane. And well, thanks to some technology, we've been able to keep in touch. And that, I think, is just a good example of how network can come full circle. A relationship that you had, a friendship from college days, we didn't see each other for years, and kind of reconnecting or staying in touch via Facebook, and then in another dimension via LinkedIn and so forth. Turns out we both end up working in the coaching space. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. It has been that long. It's crazy. And the thing is, I haven't seen you since your graduation, because you've moved all over. But I mean, like you said, we're lucky we have this technology to keep up with people.
Yeah, we'll talk about that, how you can use technology to your advantage in terms of
Absolutely.
networking. So a little bit about me. My degree is nothing to do with education or coaching. Actually, my background was bio and chemistry, and I ended up in education early on. Afterwards, I decided medicine and blood was not right for me, so I left the whole health field and got into education and coaching about 22 years ago. Last institution I worked at was ESSEC Business School, where I was the director of recruitment for the global MBA program. And I really have grown to appreciate to another level the importance of network after working for an MBA program. So MBA Waves is all about, everything to do with MBAs, education, business, global perspective, networking, and so forth. So here we are today. And thanks again, John, for joining us. So as the kind of tagline to this episode says, if networking feels sleazy, you're probably doing it wrong. And a lot of people don't feel comfortable networking because maybe they feel that they're trying to get something from somebody. They're trying to, get the upper hand or get too many favors. They don't feel comfortable doing that. So I think what I'd like to break down today is like a way to go about networking in a way that's mutually beneficial, that leaves both parties walking away feeling like they've gained something. I don't know if that speaks to you, or if you want to start off with some of your ideas related to networking.
Yeah, I think overall networking is a matter of it's a matter of respect. I think, you have to respect the people that you're meeting, their time, their commitment, their focus, their network. And you have to respect yourself by bringing the best of who you are to the table. I think when a lot of students leave schools, they've had seminars on networking, what it means. They think about it as solely meeting people, like a game of numbers to get to a job that they need. The last thing I would consider, really, I mean, you gotta assume, yes, I need a job, or I need business, or I want to bring attention to myself in some capacity. But the last thing that I think should be on that priority list, it's an assumed is that thing that you want. Everything else is about client service, customer service. I think just too many people go in there with the understanding where it's like, I need something or I don't put myself out there. But like you said, you have to kind of have that you want to avoid the sleaziness by respecting both the other person and yourself. So there's a lot more that goes into it than just saying, this is my experience. What do you have for me? It's symbiotic. It has to go back and forth.
Absolutely. You know, you got to think about what you bring to the table as well. Um,
Yeah.
Now, I like to say also, don't only go for networking when you need something. Don't seek out networking events at the moment that you need something, because then it's kind of,
Huge.
you want to be kind of constantly working on your network, and
Yes.
it shouldn't have to feel like work. I want to kind of take the word work out of network or networking, because I don't want it to seem like it's a job that you have to do. It should come something it should be something that comes a little bit naturally. Now, that's going to depend on your personality for sure. Some people are more introverted, less comfortable with this kind of thing. But hopefully, with practice, just like any skill, that's something that you can develop and overcome. You might have to turn it on a little bit more, in terms of approaching someone new. Uh,
Yeah.
as opposed to like a pure extrovert who naturally gravitates to new people and wants to get to know. But it is so important. And in terms of the MBA, before you get into the MBA program, as you're applying, networking is a part of it. We're going to talk about that in a second, during the program as well, and of course afterwards when you're looking for a job. So,
The thing that, Eric, just real quick, the thing that stood out the most of what you just said is the one you started off with. Don't just do it when you need something. It's a constant game of, because for me, it's not just about what you need, but it's about making connections with people that are behind you in your network and people that are behind the other people that you're meeting behind them in their network. It's constant building.
absolutely, which is why I think it's important to schedule networking, regularly. Like maybe once a week, you're gonna, think about, okay, where can I make sure to accomplish some networking? That could be a specific networking event. It could be an online thing. Could be a bar. Maybe your buddy or your uncle is having some kind of event or charity function or whatever that's going on. Where this is going to be an opportunity probably to meet some people. You could think in advance some of the things you'd like to talk about, that you could, share about yourself, that you're bringing to the table, that it makes that connection happen.
Yeah.
Um, mm,
And what I was going to say is it doesn't have to be a networking event.
no.
For the most part, it doesn't have to be, we're here to talk about jobs. Most of the networking that I've done in the pandemic, my networking has exploded during the pandemic. And most of that networking wasn't at online networking functions. It was going online to a forum, to a discussion, to see a speaker, and then they'll take questions. And that's when you have your opportunity to show maybe how much of a thought leader you are or how unique you are in your perspective or talking about your role. So when you have 30, 40, 50 people in a room and you're talking about what you do and they can see how you think in action. That's what I like about this virtual networking. You can see somebody in action. People reach out in the chat, hey, can we set up a time to talk? And that happened a lot. Whereas traditional networking, I think just with the networking we can do during the pandemic virtually, it's almost like you can scale up because more people are seeing you at once instead of that one-on-one of the traditional networking event.
Yeah, I've heard people say that contrary to what you might expect, whereas people say, "Oh, it's not the same as when you're in person," and of course that's true. You can't
Yeah.
shake hands, at least we're not in a metaverse yet that can achieve that, but that kind of thing. But actually, a lot of people do appreciate the efficiency that you can kind of duck in and out. You can kind of get the real key things done or talked about, or points shared, and move on to the next one, especially if it is a networking event. But what I was going to say is also there's loads of opportunities for networking that are not specifically networking events. Could be just on a bus and you're next to someone, you strike up a conversation, and they might work in a similar field or have an interest or reading a book that is related to something you're passionate about or working on, and that's a match. It's
Yes.
you have that kind of click. Oh, I love scuba diving too, or oh, I'm reading John Grisham as well, or I'm a coach, or I'm thinking about an MBA program. Where did you go? How was that experience? And that's when you want to take that as a signal to dive deeper and probably exchange information so you can continue the conversation in the future.
But a big point you brought up was just that whole introversion versus extroversion.
Mm.
You're a natural extrovert. You're one of the most extroverted people I've ever met. Me, I tend to be more introverted. So if I get into a room that's crowded with people, I'm just drained. But as I've gotten older and I have a better grip of what I want to deliver for people, the value, the coaching, my business, whatever it may be, that's what gives me the energy to speak up and speak out. And I think the pandemic has shown how bad we are at talking about ourselves, because now we're opening up a little more in these virtual venues where people kind of kept their facade up and they held back a little more. Now they're getting more vocal. I joked, this is the closest to the end of the world that we're hopefully going to see in our lifetime. Like, why are you going to hold back? Why are you going to wait? So people now are really starting to really demonstrate their value. And that's the
You
way
brought
they
up
need to see it.
Totally. You bring up an interesting point for those who are more introvert. And I don't like to label people as so black and white as you're extrovert or introvert. I
Mm,
think all people have moments when they're more extrovert,
yes.
moments when they're more introvert, and I think it's a mistake to label yourself as such. But if you're having one of those more introvert moments, you tend to be more introverted. Um, what you just described as sort of like having a focus, like knowing what you want to talk about, what you can deliver on, is what you just said. Um,
Yes.
if you have like an event that you know is going to be a networking event, or maybe it's a wedding, and you're probably going to run into some family, friends, there may be some, I don't know, business people, lawyers, and so forth, that could be interesting for your future projects. Knowing what you want to talk about is the best way to approach it. Like, you have things in mind, talking points in mind, and that's
Yeah.
what I often tell people. Like, reflect on what's interesting about you. Like,
Yes.
prepare in advance, like 4 or 5 talking points, things that you can go to. Like, what books are you reading now? What are what are you working on at this moment? What projects do goals for the medium or long term? What are you passionate about? Hobbies and so forth. Just things that are about you, that, like, if somebody just mentions, say, scuba diving or John Grisham, these are the examples I just mentioned, then you're like, oh, this is me too. And you're ready to respond and to
Yes.
exchange and engage.
Yeah, so many things you just said there. The main thing is people tend to just work towards job descriptions. So
Mm.
they think about just checking the boxes of what this company or what this person wants to see, that what they need. And then they give up everything else that they are. So a lot of the people that I work with, a lot of the leaders, they're not happy because they gave up so much of who they are. And as I work with them and they come full circle and they find more fulfillments because they've gone back and kind of picked up who they were and brought it forward. So they gave up just going by the check boxes. But you're right. A lot of people, it's one of those exercises where in coaching, it's like you may think you know yourself, you may think you know what you want, but write it down. And that's a great point that you said. If you're going to an event, know what you're into, know what you're all about. Like, you should have those talking points. You don't want to sound robotic. And don't say, well, I know myself. So if somebody asks me, I'll know on the spot. The more you see it, the more you write it down, the more you reorganize it as you go. When somebody
Journaling is
asks you,
great
it's
for that.
just authentic. It's natural. It just
Mm.
goes.
Yeah, journaling is great for that. And for people who are applying for MBA programs, journaling is a great practice to have, or to be doing prior to writing the essays that you use in your application. Because yes, they want to know about your goals as a professional, but actually what makes a unique and interesting and standout application is the experiences more on the personal side that have shaped you as an
Yeah.
individual, um, you know, as a leader, being internationally minded. So I want to touch a little bit and I'm not sure if this is something you're as familiar with, but feel free to comment at any time, John.
Sure.
Networking in terms of being an applicant for MBA programs. A big part of the research is going beyond the website, going on beyond the brochures and the recruiters, but talking to people who have already done the program, the alumni and
Yeah.
current students. So these are two populations you really want to hit on. I'd say at least two of each, right? So you have more than one perspective, right? The alumni are the only people in the world that can tell you the full scope of the program and what the ROI is, right? What does the program deliver in terms of their career? What kind of careers have they had, salaries, mobility, and so forth after doing this particular MBA program? They're the only
Mhm.
people in the world that can tell you that, besides the people who work there who are clearly selling something, right? So you want to talk to at least two of them and two current students, because those are the only people in the world that can tell you the most up-to-date version of the program. What are they doing right now this year that you're very likely going to experience when you join the following year? So networking in this sense is should be a reflex, should be obvious, should be something you're interested in doing naturally. And actually, a lot of admissions offices for MBA programs will require, they'll ask you, who have you talked to? They want to know, to make sure that you've done the research, because they don't want to bring in people who have not gone into researching the school and may, as a result, be unhappy with the program, not therefore
Yeah.
not know. Right. And so the easiest way to find current students often is on the websites. They have what they often call student ambassadors, and that's a very easy way to reach them. Alumni are a little trickier, but LinkedIn is your best friend as always, and that's an easy way to find. You type in the name of the program and the school, and you'll very likely find alumni who have done it.
Yeah. And the biggest thing with networking is kind of plays into this is don't look at it as checking boxes. So if Eric said, talk to alumni, talk to students, don't look at it as that's a box that I have to check to do this. It's for your own benefit. You know what I mean? You want to know what the alumni have said. You want to know what their experiences are. You want to know the good and the bad of the student experiences. That way you know what you're getting yourself into. So it's never just about they're awesome suggestions, but I think people get turned off when it's like, okay, this is what you have to do. It's more about the motivation as to why you need to do those things. So they shouldn't just look at it as a list. This is for your own benefit. And like you said, just studying the university, studying the alumni, meeting with them, meeting the students, it's about due diligence. So the more that you're prepared with the information about that thing that you want to go after, the more you can speak to why you're a good fit for it. You can speak to what you can bring to it. You can understand your own experience and see where it really reconciles. It's not that it's a top 10 school or a top 20 school or a top 5 school. You understand more why you really genuinely, authentically know that you fit in to whatever you're trying to accomplish or move into or get into.
100%. And you know what? Like these people, let's just say you're looking at MIT and you've reached out to John and Mary from MIT. They're both alumni. You've now connected on LinkedIn, which is a great place to kind of like catalog or stock or keep track networked with.
Yeah.
But it's more than that, because there's a lot more dynamic exchange if you use LinkedIn to its fullest capacity, like, articles and so forth.
Yes.
Anyway, John and Mary, if you end up going to the program, you're going to be fellow alumni. So you're already developing your alumni network, thinking not only like the next step in the program, but after the program, you're going to be fellow alumni with John and Mary. Or look at the opposite situation. Say you don't get in, or you choose not to go to MIT because you got into, I don't know, INSEAD. Okay, great. Well, you're not going to be fellow alumni with John and Mary, but John and Mary very well could be working at the company you're going to work at after the program. So it's not necessarily about only the people that you're going to, share an alma mater with, the same school as, but maybe, you're going to, people work together from schools all around the world. So.
And that parallels general networking, right? Aside from the MBA aspect of it, general networking is don't just think about whoever's in front of you, that you guys are going to be directly connected, that you're going to work for them. And then that's it. That's not the only place where you can have a connection. If you keep them in your network, especially with LinkedIn, LinkedIn is amazing because now you're not just collecting business cards and they never see what you're up to. Now you collect a business card or scan a QR code to get to the website, whatever the hell it is today. And you can connect on LinkedIn and then they see what you're up to. They see how you're engaging. They see the articles you're putting out. They see what you're writing. They see what you're commenting. They see how you think. So we're in a better position now for networking because of that virtual aspect, but because of that online presence. We're not just exchanging a card and being like, okay, I have nothing to do with this, but I'll just put it in a stack somewhere. You connect with them, even if you have nothing in common. They will know somebody in their network that they can put, if you ingrain yourself in their psyche by posting online, sharing online, showing that you're active, something will always come up. So it's not that just one-on-one connection. They'll know somebody behind them. Or if you ask for something down the line and you connected with somebody, but no job came of it, they'll see something that you're into. They'll see something that you're asking for. They'll see something that you need and know that there's somebody in their network that they can connect you with. It's
Absolutely.
it's a huge web. It's more networking now than it ever has because people can see what you comment on, what you share. They can see all your activity depending on your privacy settings. But I like that people see me active because I'm trying to share and engage in my community and connect them.
Totally. Yeah, I think that's what the internet gives us. It just exponentially or maybe geometrically expands the reach that you can have. We kind of were more little bubbles that
Silos.
Yeah. I mean, there was, of course, intersection to an extent, but now it really is global now, what you can do. And in terms
Yeah.
of like being a current MBA student and you're kind of, you're at the stage where you're going on interviews and say you're targeting, I don't know, Accenture, and you interview with Accenture in Paris, and actually they don't have any positions available, but they know, colleagues in the San Francisco office, and they'll maybe pass your resume or CV on to the colleagues in the San Francisco office, and you can have an opportunity over there. And if you're flexible to maybe, why not work in the States for a couple of years? That's often how it works. So, just, I guess the thing is to be aware of the potential that lies beyond what you see right in front of you, kind of as you just said, and the opportunities can just be incredibly, incredibly vast. Yeah. So in terms of network, so we talked a little bit about networking leading into getting in or applying to an MBA program, but also during an MBA program, that's quite obvious. And throughout, any MBA worth its salt is going to offer many specific networking events, right? They're events that are designed for this very purpose, for either putting you in touch with alumni from the program, recruiters, employers, perhaps professors. So these kind of events are designed for you, and they're going to probably even coach you or teach you their kind of own version or their brand of networking that they prefer to do at that school. And that's great. You can pick up a lot and take it with a grain of salt. I mean, I think you can learn a lot of things, take what works for you, put aside the rest. And that holds true for pretty much anything.
Yeah.
And then, of course, upon graduation, the alumni network is one of the most important and powerful things of any MBA program. Some people even will mock MBAs and say, you're just buying a network. Maybe, but don't forget to use it. That's what they're there for. And I think they're often underused. I think the people who are some of the best and brightest go-getters, they do take advantage of it very much. And that's how they get to where they are in a lot of ways and a lot of times. But I think it's not less than 50% really leverage the network opportunities that come with an alumni network, not only from an MBA, but masters or other various programs as well, which are often what either connects you to a job opportunity or perhaps even investors for your startup, if that's what you've decided to do. So the potential is there, and it's really about developing that reflects to, don't be afraid to approach somebody, have things about yourself that you're ready to talk about, have things to kind of offer. So like, it's not about, again, it's not about like, oh, I'm asking someone for a favor as much as it is saying, hey, you're looking for somebody to paint your house. My brother paints houses. Can I put you in touch? That kind of thing. And it just flows back and forth.
Exactly.
We can't be good at everything, right?
Exactly. So when you're meeting someone, don't just look at it like it may have been in the past where it was like, okay, I'm looking for something. I think they can give me a job. It's not even like that. Like you just maintain, it's like you maintain this profile of everybody you've met, right? So you keep in mind what they're talking about. You keep in mind your network, and maybe you're thinking, okay, this person doesn't really have anything that's for me, but I remember from my network, I have somebody I can put them in touch with. So it's just constantly ongoing. I think networking when we went to college, Eric, was just kind of to get the job. But even if you have a job, even if you have a career, always keep going, always keep looking to see what's out there. And I spoke to some students last week in undergraduate, and I told them, I mean, don't be shy about reaching out to somebody to chat, to ask questions about the field that you're going into. These are first year students. Call somebody, reach out to somebody who's in that field, ask questions, get a good sense for what that field is. I think there's a lot of people out there that if they were called unsolicited by a student and they're not asking for money, but they want to just talk by coffee or talk by a virtual meeting, I think a lot of people would say, sure, I'll see where I can have some time and I'll answer questions. I'll talk about myself. So reach out there and ask people, because a lot of us are pretty good about talking about what we're passionate about, especially our job. So it's there for the taking, especially with the internet and LinkedIn and whatnot. If you see somebody that's in your network or a one-off, first or second degree of separation, just say, we have this common connection. I see you work at this company or do this kind of work. Do you mind if we talk for coffee, maybe 15, 20 minutes? So just reach out, as very much like you just said.
You also just touched on the next thing I was going to say, is that's leveraging existing relationships. Now, again, LinkedIn, I always say, is your best friend. it very nicely displays that you know someone in common, right? It will say
Mhm.
like second degree relationship, basically. Oh, I don't know Mary, but I see John's friends with Mary, and I could, if I see Mary's profile and she's got a lot of common things that maybe she's working in education or coaching, or maybe she's into scuba diving, whatever the case. I can say,
You
hey,
in this scuba diving.
yeah, I love scuba diving. It's also, I think it's a really it's a cool example because people who do it are really passionate about it. So people that have experience doing that as one of their hobbies, I'm like, definitely include that on your resume. Because if someone sees that who also is, you're going to start, talking shop about that, and like different
Yeah.
best people to dive and so forth. But anyways, um, I'll mention really quickly, speaking of resumes, like putting interest. I think it's important to put things that are very specific, not just like photography, because like everyone with a smartphone is a photographer. But like if you're truly passionate about photography, like black and white portraiture, if that's your thing, you know what I mean, or landscape photography, or travel, like everyone likes to travel usually. So a
Yeah.
little bit more specific, like if you've been to a ton of countries, like maybe put how many, or if you have like a specific region of the world that you love, put that. So that it's something that people can hone in on and really identify with, because anyone's eyes will just scan over photography. But anyway, back to existing relationships. It's very
Mhm.
important to say, hey, Mary, I see that you're also, in touch with John. We're old buddies from college. It would be great to connect. I see also you're into, painting. I won't use scuba again. But even in person, if it's an event, like if it's someone you meet, by chance on a bus or in a bar or whatever, you won't have this opportunity. But if it's a networking event, or if it's some kind of like gala or fundraiser, very often the guest list is published in advance. You can see who's coming. And if you have the time, if there's some names that catch your attention, you can have a look on LinkedIn and see who you might know in common. This is a little kind of tip, right? So say there's, uh, I don't know, Ryan Smith is at this event, and you say, that rings a bell. You look on LinkedIn. Oh, Ryan Smith, turns out he went to Hofstra too, and he's in touch with John and Mary. So and by the way, there'll be a picture of his face on LinkedIn, as most people do. And I think that's why it's very important to allow your picture to be seen, because some people have this privacy setting, which I do not understand. Like LinkedIn is about growing your network. And if you mask yourself, I find it very strange. But
Yeah,
anyway,
yeah.
you're probably will have an idea of what he looks like and what he's done and the people you know in common. So when you spot him across, the shrimp cocktail bar or whatever, you can go right up and say, "Hey, are you Ryan Smith?" It's like, "Yeah, I thought I recognized you. I think we have some people in common." Instantly, you've got a connection, because they're going to feel connected to you, be much more likely to want to exchange, words, conversations, ideas with you, and join your network.
The pandemic is just it's a huge example of this. I have my book podcast. You were a guest on that. I'm up to 24 episodes. I've only met in person 2 of those people. Everybody else has been people that I've connected with through LinkedIn, or a mutual connection. You see they comment on that person's thread or whatever, and you see this person over and over again. You like what each other is saying, so you connect with them. Those one-offs are there, and I mean, LinkedIn is perfect. You give the example of the in person, and that's amazing as well. But it just shows you that I have reached out to people. I had maybe connected with them, but I've reached out to people I didn't know. I say, "Hey, listen, I've seen this great stuff that you've written or posted or shared. We have this mutual connection. I have this podcast. I'd love to kind of get a sense of where you stand on, whatever book." And they're game. A lot of people are game to talk about what they're about, who they're about, what they do in their work. So it's there for the taking. And the thing is, the more we want to look for business, look for work, it all comes down to, and this sounds hokey, being human, seeing somebody, seeing what they're about, asking them about themselves, in an authentic way, not a checkbox. I got to ask them about this. I got to ask them about that. You can remember it, but people can tell if you're kind of fishing for something or if you're really being genuine, and people are caught off by genuine humans. That's the exception. It's not the rule. So, just be human with somebody. It sounds ridiculous. It sounds like common sense, but it's not common practice. It's that customer service, that client service. Even if you don't have that connection yet, it's all about that experience that you give somebody. Even in that moment, you can make an impression.
I think what you're talking about is being authentic. And I think we all get hit with a lot of BS all the time. Basically, 90% of the time we're exposed just to barrage with marketing and and a lot of
Yeah.
nonsense. So you have somebody that's being their authentic self and sharing and so forth. I think it really definitely resonates and stands out, and it's going to make people focus on you and listen.
And I mean, that's why you talked about somebody's interests, right? Like if you can find out what they're into, you could ask them about that, with a genuine take or interest in it. But I think we're just so much, here's my facade, here's my work facade, my business facade. This is what I have to demonstrate or show.
Nice.
The exception of being human, it just goes a long way. Like that connection, we don't have that often. And it's a shame that we have to turn that on, that it's not the automatic approach that we have to somebody. Just be human, just be friendly, and you'd be amazed what you can find out from somebody when you're in those situations.
Totally. And you were talking about something else. Like you said, only 2 of your 22 guests have,
I've met in person.
in-person
You
contact.
and one other person. Everybody else I reached out to, because people, if you show a genuine interest in them and say, I love that what you posted on so and so's LinkedIn post, you connect. One, I just the most recent episode, I connected with her maybe a few years ago. We had a mutual connection. I figured, what the hell? She looked interesting just from what I could see in her posts. And the first time I reached out to her to actually talk to her by direct message was an invitation to come on my podcast, and we just hit it off. So I mean, you just never know, but you have to try. It's a game of numbers. Don't just throw it out there to anybody, but people are willing to connect, and that connection is what counts most.
Yes, there's another platform. I don't know. You probably know Lunch Club.
No, man, I can't keep up with all these things.
There's so much out there. I know
It's
a lot
just
of
too
the
much.
names, like, I don't know, Twitter and Tinder, and they all kind of have these like catchy little 2-syllable names. But anyway, Lunch Club. This one, I think it existed before COVID, but it really took off during. People again were really thirsty for human interaction, and this was a good, not replacement, but a good.
Yeah.
Anyway, tell you what it is. Basically, you make a profile with your interests and so forth. Then it asks what kind of interactions you like. Is it looking from you're looking for advice or professional relationships or personal, friendly? So you can choose to select people you want to potentially meet with, and if they agree, you match, or you can let the system do it. They have an algorithm, right? There's always
Okay. Yeah.
I love how algorithm is just a blanket word for somehow they do it, and I don't know how.
Yeah. Wait, so is that almost like Meetup? Is it like that?
It's something like Meetup, right?
Okay.
And I've had like 4 or 5 interactions so far, and they've all been fantastic. Not just like, oh, that was nice, but they've all been like cool. I mean, we've stayed in touch. One was like a professor in Connecticut who was originally from somewhere in Eastern Europe, and she was fascinating. And like her son does like video editing, and I might hire him to do it. You never know what it's going to be. That was not her son did not plan that, but he basically got a job from his mom's interaction on this platform and met a stranger in Paris. Who's in
That's why it's no longer just about me needing a job in the moment. Like you said, these interactions that you had are just kind of things that you found interesting, and you never know what's going to happen. Because the only thing that wakes people up more than their paycheck, which comes from their job or their business, is what they're passionate about.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can talk to somebody in a conversation, I love good conversations. If you can talk to somebody and get them really invested in a great conversation about maybe things they don't even talk about, usually, that just sparks connection. So, I mean, even though we got on here talking about networking for jobs for MBAs, it comes back to that human aspect. It always does, because that's rarely at the forefront. We're just on cruise control, going through life, going through work, just trying to get through, trying to like look like we're in control. So when you can have that genuine connection with somebody, I'm not saying hug everybody you meet, embrace them or anything, but when you can have just a genuine conversation with somebody, it's huge. It's huge.
Yeah, life's very busy, and sometimes life's very hard, and so
Yeah.
we do get on autopilot sometimes. I think it's also worth mentioning the balance between being aware of what you're interested in and passionate about, but also taking interest in other people. Because if it's just about you, it comes off as very egocentric and so forth. So I think it's really be prepared to talk about yourself. Have on the forefront of your brain what you're passionate about, what projects you have upcoming that you maybe would like a partner in or need advice on or whatever, but also listen. Give people eye contact and listen wholeheartedly, and be able to engage and respond in a way that shows that you actually care and listen. Taking interest in other people is just as important as taking interest in yourself. So I think that balance is very important to think about and maintain and keep in mind as you're networking.
I got to speak at a couple graduations a couple of years ago, and it was at the University of Hartford, my alma mater for my master's programs. And I told the students, maybe the administrators don't want to hear this, but there's thousands of students across the country that are graduating with your exact degree. It may vary a little from institution to institution, but they're all the same. How are you going to set yourself apart?
Mm.
And that goes for whether you're a student or a seasoned executive. I have a job. Here's the job description. You can check off the boxes. A lot of people can check off the boxes. What's unique about you? What are you going to bring to the table? How are you going to make it an experience for me? So it's all about that experience that you create for that person that you're connecting with. It's not just about, I got a degree, you're looking for a degree, I have 5 years experience in this, you need 5, I have 3, you have 3. Like, how are you going to set yourself apart from everybody else that has on paper the same thing? Because in
Scuba
the
diving.
end, as I said that, I pictured you in like a snorkel outfit and a tank. But it's the truth. How are you going to set yourself apart? It doesn't mean you have to be overly schmoozy or anything like that, but don't lose your uniqueness. Know what your tools are, your curriculum, your experience, but don't lose your uniqueness, your humanity by trying to check all those boxes that you believe somebody needs. They may need that, but you may be able to provide so much more that they didn't know they needed.
Sure. Sure. I always say this, like, we're all professionals, right? But at the end of the day, we're all human and we want to connect. We are, creatures of group,
Yes.
and we need connection. And, if all things are equal on paper, you have the same credentials and so forth, that one that connects with you and shares something. Yeah. It's, of course, of course.
Yeah.
Sometimes I get the question about business cards. I don't know how you feel about using business cards. Some people are, it's passe, it's like old school, or it's not eco-friendly. Other people still think it's important and helpful. What are your thoughts on business cards these days?
I don't know because I haven't used one honestly in like over 2 years because of the pandemic. I did have them. I think it's good to have everything in one shot. Or, I mean, the way that I've set it up is if you really don't want to have them, I mean, you're with somebody, they have a smartphone, they know you have a smartphone. How do you spell your last? I'll look you up on LinkedIn right now. What's your number? I'll text you. They're tools that we can use. That way you don't lose touch with that person. If they have cards, fine. Um, I don't know, man. I haven't been to a networking event in so long. Like I said, the majority of my networking is online forums and whatnot. So I dread the fact that everything's going back to normal because now I'm seeing, oh, we're having an in-person event. And I have like 3 kids now. So we're virtually I could go from one meeting from 6 to 7, log off, sign into the next one from 7 to 8 instead of driving 20 minutes, looking for parking, paying and doing all that stuff. Long story short though, I think, we know we have smartphones. We can look each other up on LinkedIn. I've done that plenty of times. Just ask somebody for their phone number, texted them and just stayed in touch like that. If you trust each other and you've had a good conversation, they won't mind just saying, oh, this is how you found me on LinkedIn, or this is my phone number. Just shoot me a text and we'll chat sometime this week.
Sure. Yeah, I think business cards is a personal choice, and I don't think you should worry too much about it. I think enough people are into it compared to those who aren't. People in more traditional industries like lawyers and finance people, real estate agents, they very often have business cards. I use them, but I get that some people are like, "What's this paper thing like?" And I'm someone who's very earth conscious and eco friendly. I
Yeah.
cycle like a, a madman. Uh,
I'm trying to remember the last time I actually handed somebody a business card. I'm not against it, but with LinkedIn, it's like, oh, let me just look you up real quick and
yeah,
really just sent you a connection and boom. So I mean, there's just so many ways to track somebody down in that moment that yeah, if you want to use them, fine. If you don't,
yeah,
if you want to use them, make sure, they look great and whatnot. They don't have to be fancy, but just, nice and balanced. I'm very particular about that stuff. But
sure.
you'll find a way to get in touch if you really had that great conversation.
In terms of like MBA fairs, most people show up with their CV or resume, same thing.
Mhm.
So probably in this case, business cards are not really necessary, but in general for networking, I think they can be great, especially if you have, yeah, if you're looking for business, if you're independently employed, like we are, I find them handy. But as you said, LinkedIn's a great tool. And you mentioned if you meet someone, you really connect, they probably would exchange phone numbers. Again, I'll defer to LinkedIn. I think that it's such a great tool because it's a huge platform with like the context is professional mode, right? It's not Facebook. Not everyone wants to exchange Instagram. You might have, silly pictures or worse, and you don't want people to see that. So LinkedIn, you know what you're getting. It's professional, and I think it's also less threatening than asking for someone's phone number. They might not want you to. They maybe think you're going to harass them by
Yeah,
email,
yeah, of course, of
text, whatever.
course. Absolutely.
Also maybe for women especially might not feel comfortable giving a phone number or anyone.
Hmm.
And so I think LinkedIn's a very non-threatening way to say, hey, why don't we exchange LinkedIn? I think it's a very good habit for people to adopt young. When I have either I'm working with people in their young 20s, or sometimes I meet people who are in high school. We have a couple of interns who are high school, early college age. I tell them, look, you guys have youth on your side. I wish I started developing my network at 18 or 25. I only really seriously started doing it in my early 40s, and I'm 45 now. And I have a pretty
Yeah,
decent
I believe that. I believe that. Yeah,
network. Yeah,
me really taking it seriously like in the last 5 years, but really understanding what it is during the pandemic,
yeah,
because I realized that people were doing what we're doing virtually, right? They're in their environment, they're at home, they're comfortable, so they're opening up more. The world's falling apart outside. There's a pandemic, so they were being more honest, more open.
mm,
So then I became more honest, more open. So I really did good networking before that, but during the pandemic, I just realized that people want to share more than they actually do. They're getting better at it. We're getting better at it. So that's when mine really picked up. But like you said, can you imagine if we had great tools like LinkedIn and we're seeing great conversations like this about how to use it, like the pros and cons. But back
sure.
when we were in school, it was just like, these are the check boxes, nice suit, we'll check your resume. Here's how to look for the job. Good luck, go get them.
Maybe some
But now,
we didn't
now
have like
there's
when we were in college, right? You graduated in like '01, I guess. Uh,
yeah, yeah,
and I was like 99 or 2000. And LinkedIn was invented in '03, so it wasn't even there. So
yeah,
we didn't have that like formal training on how to use it, and it started happening in the background. And we're like, oh, another Facebook or whatever it may be. I felt like, okay, I made an account, but I barely checked it. Maybe sometimes months, sometimes years went by, and I didn't check it.
yeah,
Didn't really have its purpose. Plus, I worked at Long Island University for 8 years, so I wasn't really looking. I had mobility within the institution, a couple of job changes, but I was still at the same school, and I didn't really need to network in that sense. I networked very locally.
yeah,
It was really when I moved abroad, and then I was in different countries, and then working for a business school, specifically an MBA program, that really opened my eyes to the value and the power of LinkedIn and what you can do with it. So I'm just like a big fan to work
yeah.
for them.
Me too. Count me in, because I mean, those people that I reached out to first conversation. There's so many people that I had that first conversation at all. Maybe some through email, but first face to face conversation during that podcast. And now I know that I can go back to them for anything because we had such a great conversation. I know I count them as very close confidants just because of the nature of just reaching out to people. And some people are game. It's a game of numbers. Some people are like, oh yeah, we can do that. But some people are like, yes, let's do it. So it's like a game of numbers. Keep trying, do your due diligence, but keep trying, seeing who's out there, seeing what people are up to, and just engaging.
Mm.
And again, I'm very much an introvert, but now I'm not so much because I found my niche of what I'm interested in. And that's what kind of fires me up. People call BS on me saying I'm an introvert because I host my podcast and whatnot, but it's because I found what I'm passionate about. I found what fires me up. So that's what allows me to do that.
Also, I don't think an introvert equates to shy. It's not the same thing.
No, exactly. But that's the perception that they have,
Yeah.
So believe me, I know that more than anybody, but that's the perception that they have, that they're shy, that they're not confident, but even confidence, shyness, all that is very different stuff.
And there's also been lots of studies, articles about, the importance of introverts in organizations, like the balance they bring. You can't have everyone who's like too
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
outgoing and so forth. No, it's not about being shy. I've always defined introversion as somebody who recharges their batteries with more alone time, and extroversion by being around other people. But again, I do not believe at all. So this kind of, so I don't know how you feel about that. I think it's kind of a trendy buzzword these days. What do they call them? Like, oh geez, flexoverts or something like. There's a
Oh,
term that
come
I've heard.
on.
Yeah,
Well,
like
I've heard of ambiverts. I consider myself
that's
that
the
because,
one.
like you said, but you said you gave that definition when we just started this conversation, where you said sometimes you feel like you want to come out of your shell, or be more engaging. Sometimes you feel like you don't. And that's
Right.
what that is. I realize I have that now. It's like, it depends on the situation. It
I
depends
think
on the
everyone's an
person.
ambivert. It's like no need I also
Could
think
be.
humans kind of need to belong to some kind of group and they identify whether it's a zodiac sign, a religion, or a baseball team. So it's like they're like, oh yeah, that sounds like me.
You're right. You're right. We're just all so different. We're all so different. And we need to realize that there's value in that. Like you said, if you have all extroverts, all introverts, or all shy or all confident, you just don't get that diversity of thought and community and ideas. And you lose innovation if you just stick to one type of whatever it may be you're talking about.
Mhm. That's also interesting to point out in terms of networking and connecting with people. Just because you don't like share the same exact hobbies, that doesn't have to mean that it's not a match. Like maybe that person is aware, like if it's an organization, a company, they need more people with different diversity, like different skills in finance. Like say, for example, you're the CEO, like a great CEO is somebody who surrounds him or herself, with people who are better than he or she is at various aspects of the company and their needs, so finance, marketing, and so forth.
That's
Um,
why
so,
when I speak to students and I tell them to find their tribe, I say it's important. When I say find your tribe, I want you to go beyond what you feel comfortable in, right? Little by little. You don't have to jump out of, all at once, but step outside your comfort zone, because some will shut down when they're not in the right network where they can't harness what they're all about. And I tell them, step outside your comfort zone, find your tribe. And finding your tribe doesn't mean finding people that are like you, exactly like you. Yes, people. It means a tribe in which you can thrive, one that complements who you are, one that challenges who you are, one that engages who you are and wakes up that energy. But it's important to find that right mix of people, because I think a lot of the issues we go through, it's because we stay in environments that aren't conducive to what we want for ourselves. And I don't think people get motivated enough to step beyond what they know to
mm,
explore what's out there.
mm. That's why it's so important to test things out when you're younger before you have commitments, like mortgages and children and so forth. To try as much as possible and to step out your comfort zone. The younger you are, the better. Listen, John, we're like almost 50 minutes into this episode. 40. Oh, it's 46 on that clock. So, any final words of wisdom you want to share? Any points you wanted to bring up?
Nope. The networking just has so many different components. All I could say is remember your value, respect yourself, the experience you have, respect the other people. Networking is no longer just about two people connecting to get a job, and it has to be an ongoing process. Building that value around you, surrounding yourself with just people of great diversity, great education and experience. Um, it can be anything you want it to be. And with LinkedIn, the way that we've discussed here, it's at your fingertips and you can do anything you want with it if you choose to.
Absolutely. What I always say, like the better you treat your network, the better it treats you.
Absolutely. I mean, you and I see each other out there all the time. We're active, engaging, liking, sharing. So take advantage of that. You and I never had that when we got out of school. Please take advantage of that great tool.
100%. All right. Well, thank you all for listening and watching. And thank you so much, John, for having this conversation tonight. It was fun. Always great to see you.
You too,
Um,
brother.
just to mention, next week, MBA Waves episode 49. I can't believe we've had so many so far. It's almost a year we've been doing this. Episode 49 is the importance of mentoring and coaches. We have a guest speaker named Susana De Rosa, who I stumbled upon at a LinkedIn Live event a couple of weeks ago. And turns out she's a coach, founder and coach of her company, which I'm going to butcher the pronunciation. It's like Crescer. Anyway, she's based in Angola. So she caught my attention, and then we decided to have a phone call a couple of weeks ago, and she's fantastic. So we're going to have a coach from a different part of the world joining us for this episode 49, the importance of coaches. John, if you want to join us, you're welcome, as always. And
Hey, anytime you have room for me, man, I'll hop on as all.
come on, there's always room for you. All right. Well, thank you once again, and have a great week. See you next Tuesday.
Thank you.